You know, the 1912 presidential election wasn't just another vote. Oh no, it was a political earthquake. It completely redrew the map of American politics. It pitted friends against each other, and it gave rise to new movements that would shape the entire century. But right at the heart of this incredible story is one central, kind of baffling question. How on earth does a sitting president, the leader of a major party, not only lose re-election, but finish in a distant third place? That's the mystery we're going to unravel. So yeah, the outcome of the 1912 election was nothing short of a dramatic rejection of the status quo. It was a political moment totally unlike any seen before, or maybe even since in American history. To really get the shock of it all, you've got to look back 4 years. See, in 1908, William Howard Taft won the presidency, and he won it easily. He was the hand-picked successor to the incredibly popular Theodore Roosevelt. So, by all conventional wisdom, he should have been in a commanding position for his second term. And yet, that's not what happened. Not even close. By the time 1912 rolled around, the writing was on the wall. It became clear to pretty much everyone, long before a single ballot was cast, that the sitting president of the United States was headed for a humiliating defeat. So, what happened? Well, the first crucial piece of this puzzle is the absolute civil war that erupted inside the Republican Party. On one side, you have President Taft, the official nominee, representing the party establishment. And on the other, you have his former mentor, the one and only Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt believed Taft had betrayed their shared progressive ideals, so he launched a rebellion, basically positioning himself as the true progressive leader. Now, Roosevelt first tried to take the nomination from Taft from within the Republican Party. But when the party bosses stuck with the incumbent, Roosevelt didn't back down. Nope, he walked out, started his own progressive party, which everyone famously called the Bull Moose Party, and in doing so, he completely shattered the Republican vote. So, with the Republicans busy tearing themselves apart, the door was just wide open for their rivals. The Democrats saw a once-in-a-generation chance to seize power. And, wouldn't you know it, they had the perfect candidate for the moment, Woodrow Wilson. He was also a progressive, but unlike the Republicans, he was a unifier. He could just stand back, watch his opponents fight it out, and present himself as the sensible, forward-thinking alternative. Wilson's campaign message was so sharp and effective. He matched Roosevelt on progressive reforms while absolutely hammering the mainstream Republicans as the party of corporate interests and unfair economic policies like high tariffs. He offered a really clear choice. But hold on, this story has another major player. While that three-way fight between Taft, Roosevelt, and Wilson gets all the attention, there was a powerful fourth force at play that year. And it represented the absolute high watermark for American socialism. This is why that common picture of a three-cornered race is, well, just incomplete. To really, truly understand 1912, you have to look at the full field of candidates and the powerful ideas they all represented. And that fourth contestant was Eugene V. Debs, a fiery and committed labor organizer. Debs was the face of the Socialist Party. And let me be clear, he wasn't some fringe candidate. He was the leader of a significant movement that was demanding fundamental change in America. Debs came from the radical wing of the labor movement. I mean, he'd founded powerful unions, led massive strikes against railroad and industrial giants, and had even been thrown in jail for his activism. He wasn't just asking for reform, he was demanding a complete overhaul of the entire system. But what's really fascinating is that even the labor movement itself was divided. On the other side, you had Samuel Gompers of the American Federation of Labor. He believed in working with business, not overthrowing it. He focused on practical gains, like wages and job security. He and Debs were rivals, representing two very different paths for American workers. And despite these divisions, Debs's radical message resonated big time. In 1912, he received over 900,000 votes. That is a massive number that shows just how widespread the discontent with the mainstream parties really was. That vote total translated to 6% of the total popular vote. And get this, to this day, it remains the best performance ever for a Socialist Party candidate in a U.S. presidential election. It was a sign of a powerful movement that you just couldn't ignore. So, with four very distinct ideologies on the ballot, you've got conservative republicanism, progressive insurgency, democratic unity, and radical socialism. What was the final outcome? Okay, the numbers tell the whole story here. Woodrow Wilson wins with 42% of the vote. But look, just look at the Republican side. Roosevelt's 27% and Taft's 23% add up to 50%. The Republican vote wasn't defeated. It was just hopelessly divided. If they had been united, they would have won. Easily. And here's a fascinating little detail about Wilson's victory. He actually won the presidency with a smaller vote total and a lower share of the vote than the perennial Democratic loser, William Jennings Bryan, had often managed to get in his failed campaigns. Wilson didn't win some massive mandate, he just won the math problem. The aftermath was decisive. Wilson and the Democrats took control of both the White House and Congress. But Roosevelt's Bull Moose Party, despite his strong showing, it just kind of fizzled out. It won only a handful of congressional seats, which proved that the party was really built around one man's popularity, not a lasting political movement. So the 1912 election clearly broke the old political mold. But it leaves us with this lingering question. Was Woodrow Wilson's victory the triumph of a single, unifying leader who just expertly navigated a political storm, or was it the inevitable result of a broader progressive movement that was going to take power no matter who was carrying the banner? It's a debate that really highlights that complex dance between personality and ideology in shaping history.